Good evening and welcome to this session of the Emerging Future series. My very special guest is a very dear friend also, and from whom I've learned a lot of things about life, about work, about business, about conducting one's own self. It is Ravi Gilani. Ravi, welcome to this session. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Vimal.
much for joining us. Before I start, I must also say a few things. One, Eid Mubarak to everyone who's online with us today. May the Almighty bless us all with good health and prosperity, contentment. This is also a long weekend, so enjoy the long weekend. It is also Rakhi time, so enjoy the family time with your brothers and sisters, and it's a very special time for all of us. Uh, Before I start, may I also introduce Ravi and some of the things that Ravi has achieved. Ravi actually is the founder of Goldrat India, and he founded it in 1998. Ravi is actually also the only Indian to be awarded the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award by the TOC International, which is the Theory of Constraints International Inc. Ravi has consulted Indian and transnational organizations like Jindal Steel and Power, Tata Boeing, Thomson Press, Godrej and Boyce, Alstom, Sleepwell, and numerous others, which I can't read the whole list out here. Before starting as a consultant, Ravi gained valuable hands-on experience in operations with Tata Motors, Eicher Motors, and then he was the chief consultant at Eicher Consulting. He is an alumnus of IIT Delhi. Ravi, and I think the uniqueness about Ravi, amongst all the wonderful people I have known, is he enjoys striving for the impossible, and he does it by challenging sacred assumptions, which many of us call holy cows. And he brutally looks at how to simplify complexity. May I also forewarn everyone who's in the audience today that Ravi is very forthright. Don't expect any, Ravi, if I may say, politically correct answers, but you will get straight head-on advice, which is practical and proven advice with good inputs on almost any aspect that you may want to know of. May I also invite everyone who's attending this webinar to put your questions in the Q&A box. You will see these buttons at the bottom. If you have any observations, or any comment that you want to make, that could go into the chat. But the questions, preferably if they are in Q&A area, then Ravi and I can keep looking at those and we can try and respond to those immediately. The more precise your question is, the more precise will be the answer that Ravi and I could bring to you. So thank you so much to all of you for joining us. And Ravi, coming back to you, first of all, thank you so much for doing this with us today. Now, you've had a very successful career with Tata Motors, Eicher Consulting. What inspired you when everything was going fine to kind of change track totally and say, no, the corporate life is not for me and I need to get into consulting?
Okay. Vimal, it's a little long story. It goes a little about 28 years back. Specifically, I remember the date, 28 December 1992. My brother had come from US. He had been settled for long in US. I was seeing him off the airport, Delhi airport. I was living in Chandigarh. And in those days, if you recall, we didn't have the possibility to see him off and see whether everything is okay. Mobile phones were not there. I'm talking about 28 December 1992. So I was standing outside the airport, looking through him, through the hazy glasses, if everything has gone well, etc., etc. And it can take any time to an hour or two before he can check in everything along with his family. I picked up two magazines, Business India and Business Today. In Business Today, I started reading the review of the book, Liberation Management by Tom Peters. And in this, he was talking about flattening of the organization, etc., etc. And I started thinking in my mind, what can be the ultimate organization? First number which came to me, there's only one boss and everyone report to him. There can't be a flatter structure than that. But I must tell for everyone, I was and I'm still very good in mathematics. Now, as I was thinking, so the lowest number was coming to 1, only one layer. There can't be any. But then the smallest number is not 1, it is 0. It didn't make any sense to me at that time. I stopped reading that and picked up the other magazine, Business India. There was a book review called Threshold of Motivation by my ex-senior, Mr. V.S. Mahesh, who, when he wrote the book, he was the director HR for Taj Group of Hotels. He was explaining that people have to be nurtured like nurseries and so on. I mean, you have to take a lot of care. And suddenly it started thinking, why do I need motivation? Now I remember my first day in September 1972, 48 years back. The first day I was standing at the magnificent gate of Telco, not Tata Motor, because that was the name, it's still etched on my eyes. And we are just fresh from IIT, 5 of us. I said, now we'll show to these people what IIT students can, or IIT graduates can do it. I was extremely charged. But 9 years later, I had left the organization. I joined one more company. Okay, Tata was a very large organization. I couldn't show my mettle here. This organization, I will definitely do so. Couple of more organizations, and that included Eicher also. And finally, I was looking, is this problem with me alone? By the way, it is 92, December 92. I am 20 years in the manufacturing, or let me say, corporate sector. Am I the only one who has a problem? I go motivated, but in due course of time, something happens. No, this is not the right place. I must look for something else. I come demotivated, and I was doing it. I was wondering, is it only because of me? Then I looked at all my classmates. I think 2 of my classmates perhaps are there in the audience. I realized that all of them also have the same experience. They join one company, but in due course they leave and join another one, and then another one, and then another one. I was still not getting something clear answer. Then I said, almost everyone I know in my life, they do change jobs, nothing special with me. At that time, it was, remember, it is December 92, 28 December, extremely cold. I think I'm at something very significant I must put on, and like a light bulb, suddenly a flash happened in my mind. I realized the real problem of all companies in the entire world is just one: master-slave relationship. No matter what your degrees are, whatever your designation is, there are only 2 classes of people. I want to make it, there's one is called owner, another is knocker. I'm using the word deliberately because I have heard in another company, a large industrialist. I had gone to meet him. He wanted me to connect to his general manager. And he asked his servant, मेरी नौकरों वाली वो telephone book लाना. That was a few years later than 92. I'm just giving you that. So actually, the real problem was, man is born free. Initially, we surrender our freedom for safety. But after some time, what really happens, no day I got less salary than the previous day. But the real, I would say, the crack started when I was not listened to, when I was snubbed, when I had my freedom of expression was curbed. The moment I got it, now both the things joined together. There should be no employee, there should be no employer. Let there be relationship as a customer and a supplier. Now, I started working a lot more on it. And my favorite example was a tent wala. See, in a marriage function, I mean, earlier, nowadays, we do it in the banquets, but my own marriage happened in a tent in the garden. There was a park, a tent was put up. In a tent, on that day, there are 20, 30, 40 people maybe working. That they are not the employees of the tent fellow. They generally work together as a short team. If those associates don't get a good deal from the tent fellow, they will leave him. If this fellow doesn't behave, the tent fellow will not hire them next. So I generated this concept called employee-less organization. I worked a lot on that. Visited a few organizations in the US, and one company I can specifically mention, I went there, which is almost an employee-less organization. It's called W.L. Gore and Associates. There are no designations in that company. There are no salary structures. None. Now, read out more on the web about this company. Now, I started promoting employee-less organization concept. But one fine day, July 98, almost how many years now? 22.
Yeah.
I felt that I was a hypocrite. To the whole world, I was telling that you become employee-less, but I myself was an employee. So I told my boss, Anil, that I want to leave. He asked me, what happened? Do you have any problem with me? And frankly, he had more problems with me than I had with him. I used to trouble him like anything. Now, so I said, I'm on record.
Incidentally, Anil was a speaker on this forum a few weeks back.
Very good. So I told him, no, you are the best boss I ever had. So he said, what's your problem then? I said, I don't want a boss. I want to my own boss. I took this vow that either neither be an employee nor be an employer. So I have not employed anybody for 22 years. I have many associates. We work together. Very simple. We must satisfy the client fully. When he gives the money, we share in a pre-agreed proportion. If we get the money, he does party, I does party. I do my party. If he doesn't, tum bhi gurdwara jao, main bhi gurdwara chalta. So I am what you call, I'm not losing my sleep. How do I give him how do I manage the salary for the next month? So that is the logic. Mm-hmm. And 22 years, it has been I have enjoyed my life thoroughly.
So what took you on this journey toward TOC? What was the trigger? Because I'm sure around that time, nobody knew in India about TOC.
You're right. I'll have to explain you. You see, around 98 only. Now, this also happens coincidentally, if I can call it. A friend gave me, one of my associates gave me this book, The Goal, to read it. I was coming from Sambalpur to Havra station. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, by the time the train reached Havra station, I had not finished the book. Mm-hmm. But I could not leave it. I what you call sat down on a bench in Havra station to finish the book. It took me another half an hour. I told the driver, wait, I'm first finishing the book before I come. And now, after I read the book, it was as if somebody had cleaned the fog in front of my eyes. I'll explain you. I've been very lucky all my life that whatever I do with full passion. Either I don't do it or I'll do it for full. I will not do half-hearted. When I started consulting in 93, March 15, 1993, we had three types of results. Some results were excellent. Client praised us, we praised them. It was a mutual backslapping society. Somewhere the, what you call, results were so-so. Client cribbed a little bit, we cribbed a little bit. Somewhere there were practically no results. Client blamed us, we blamed them. No matter what we say outside, but the real fact is, we did not know why in one company the results come and another do not. And I was confused. Why does it happen? I work everywhere, full dedication, or I will not work at all. Now it so happened, after I read the book, The Goal, the message was crystal clear. Every organization in the world, every system has more than one link. That's why it is called a system. Every system has more than one link. Now, the performance of the link system is determined by the performance of its weakest link. Unless you can identify and improve upon the weakest link, the organization cannot improve at all. If at all, it is a statistical fluctuation. Now I realize, let me finish a few seconds ago. Wherever by mistake, inadvertently, we had no clue, we worked on the weakest link, results came. Where we touched, some results came. Where we bypassed it, nothing happened. This was the revelation I had in '98. So I decided that I'm going to work on TOC. I told Anil, let's work on TOC. Somehow, I could not influence Anil to work on TOC at that time. So I said, fine. On another side, this feeling of being hypocrite was also bothering me. So I decided, let me start on TOC. So that's my journey on TOC, starting.
So could you just give a small example of a story of what you have experienced, which for all our listeners here, it gives an example of how TOC kind of helps identify the constraint that you were talking about.
Okay. Now you're asking me to give a lecture. I'll try to make it short. I'll try, because if you ask me for next few hours, I am quite okay. But you may not and the audience may not. Let me be. In fact, my client, I think, is friend and client and classmate is already sitting in the audience, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome.
Raghu Hari Dalmia. Raghu, if you are there, just if you can somehow respond that yes, you are there.
Yeah,
in the chat.
Put a
chat
message
box.
in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Now he had an organization having 200 odd employees who had been making losses for 2.5 years. Yes, he said, yes, I'm here. And at that time, we had just started, embarked on the journey of TOC. And in TOC, we were saying that we can turn around any company. The only requirement is no layoff. That's all. The only requirement is no layoff, no investment.
No layoff.
That's all. No layoff. That was on day one. And for that, I must say, I must give full credit not only to Dr. Goldratt, but also Eicher Consulting, Anil Sachdev. Even in Eicher also, we are very clear, we will not take any assignment where people reduction is the part of the game. We are not going to do that. So I told them that, look, I don't know much about TOC. Why don't you do one thing? I have an associate. She was my instructor. She comes from Australia, Catherine Lishman. Perhaps you have also participated in one of her programs.
I've met her.
You have met her. Why don't we take her help? Because I don't know much. Raghu said, look, my friend, forget how much she will come from Sydney all the way to Rajgangpur. Not Rajgangpur, not many people will know about it also. So at this stage, look, I've decided to close down the factory in 6 months' time. What can happen with you? We may have to close down in 3. And since he knew me from 1967, and this is the year 99, I know you will put your best effort. I'm ready to take a gamble with you. So I went there. So I asked the team, the top team, 8, 10 people, what is your goal? And by the time they had read the book, The Goal, they said, make money. So I asked them, are you making money? He said, no. So I asked the finance man, why are you not making money? He said, we are not selling. I don't get the equipment to deliver. How can I do anything? Okay. So I asked him, why don't you sell? He said, I don't get the complete equipment. So I asked the production man, why don't you give him the full equipment? Full equipment? How can I give? I don't have raw material. So I asked the materials manager, why are you not giving the raw material? He said, I don't get money. So how can I do it? So we asked the finance man, why are you not giving the money? He said, what can I do? The marketing man does not get me the money. How can I? So I asked the marketing man, why are you not collecting the money? He said, I told you, I'm not selling. So how can I collect the money? I was confused.
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue what to do here. So the best thing was, okay, let's take a break. I went around the shop floor. I expect that these people would have no money, so the shop floor should be empty. But it was full of material. Everywhere. There was no space to walk around. I had to jump through the hoops. Now, I came back after lunch. I asked them, I've seen a lot of material. Assuming we could go back, did you have enough material to manufacture one order? They said, yes. 2, yes. Somewhere when it became 4 or 5 orders, they said, perhaps not. But 5 orders, perhaps we can do. So what was happening? We are spreading our butter thin. We are not focusing. So we would have 10 or 15 orders on the shop floor in various stages of completion, but not enough material for anyone also. So everyone is stuck.
True.
Now, I'll explain you a little bit more. For example, they had a fabrication shop. Now, fabrication shop is measured by the tonnage you make.
Yeah.
But an order might need 100 parts, starting from 110 to 1 ton to even 500 gram also. So what happens? The big parts get ready, but not the small ones. But without the small ones, we can't make further operations. And the same thing was in machine shop and everywhere. So the weakest link really happened was, on the face of it, it was cash, but it was not using the cash properly. There are only 4 physical constraints for any organization in the world. These are, either you don't have orders. Number 2, you have a constraint or capacity is an issue. Or you have supplies are not there, or you don't have cash to buy the material. There is no further, only 4. If you talk about labor today, I would call labor is a part of capacity, nothing more. Yeah. Now, behind these 4 constraints, the real constraint is the owner's or decision maker's assumption, wrong assumption. Like utilizing each resource to 100% will give us a very good result. This is the fundamental flaw. Let me give you a small example. I use most examples from my home. I can see there are 26 participants here. So apart from you and me, there are another 24. Most of us will have more than 1 bathroom in our home. Is that correct?
That's true.
Now, what is the utilization of a bathroom? 1 person is unlikely to be using more than 2 hours a day. Something wrong if he's or she is using more than 2 hours. In a
That's
family
also
of
very 4, liberal.
I'm just trying to be so that nobody breaks and no, sir, I do take a little extra time. The utilization of a bathroom for a family of 4 or 5 is no more than 8 to 10 hours a day. Yet we have more than 1 bathroom. The reason is, if we had only 1 bathroom, some of us will suffer heavily because we need the bathroom at the same time. And when you talk about time, my favorite example is how theory of relativity is, time depends which side of the bathroom door you are standing.
That is so true.
So what happens, the concept that utilization of each resource to 100% is wrong. You identify the weakest link and then try to get the maximum out of that. Now, incidentally, what we did, we made some small simple rules. Fabrication shop, you cannot work on more than 3 orders at any given time. You are not allowed. And we made some other measurements that you will not get any credit for any tonnage produced unless you have done for 1 order complete, parts. Once you have done complete parts, you get full credit for that order. Same thing in machine shop, same thing in assembly shop. Net result is, Raghu, I'm sharing the data. I hope it's okay with you. It's 22 years now, or 21 years. In the very first 3 months, October, December, we had a turnover of 2 crores and 21 lakhs and the 21 lakhs rupees profit. I remember 1st January 2000 was the best possible day till that day in my life, because now there was a ray of hope. In subsequent 5 years, our profit was 3 times the maximum turnover we ever had, without any additional investment, without any layoff. And why do I call it my really enjoyable? Because there were 200 people there. There are 5 members per family. Had it been closed, there was no possibility of any, if I can call, job around. At least in 1,000 human beings, there would have been a stark difficulties. I believe this is the only thing which if I have to choose one thing which I've done good in my life, is Raghu. He allowed me to experiment on his company. So thanks to Raghu. Mm-hmm. So this is the actual story. You can ask Raghu if you wish to anything more on that.
Sure. So Ravi, coming back to the story you just mentioned, would it be right to say that in theory of constraints, you basically try and identify which constraint of the 4 that you have mentioned is the one which is the bottleneck, and then you really try and optimize the whole system around that one constraint rather than separate optimization of each separate function or department?
Okay. You see, optimize, I have a difficulty with this word optimization. Mm-hmm. Optimization means there's one best solution. I don't. My belief is that, yes, you are right. Wherever, what is your constraint, get the maximum out of it as much as possible. But in my mind, there is no limit to that. Mm-hmm. There's a huge potential for everywhere to generate more. And I use a concept called better than before, B2B. For me, B2B is not business to business. It is better than before. Mm-hmm. No matter what you do, we can do better than before. I have, in the last few years, since 5 years, when I picked up this book, Better Than Before, I was in US doing an assignment for a Sona Group company. I picked up at the airport this book, Better Than Before. And here, I find people own it. When I tell them that whatever you have done in the past, would you attempt to do it somewhat more? People say, I would like to, though I may not know how. I said, fair enough, we'll work together. The important thing is people do own it. That, to my mind, is the most important thing. Okay. So experience is, I'm just going to give you, at JSPL, we started work in 2015. Their inventories plus receivable was 6,500 crores on a monthly turnover of 1,000 crores.
Wow.
In 2 years, we did not increase the sale at all, just 2%. But we reduced inventories from 6,500 crores to 2,900 crores. We got a benefit of 3,600 crores in inventory and receivables. We funded the losses of the company. We were making a loss, as well as an expansion project in Angul. Now, after 6 years, this year they have declared a positive profit. They have paid tax. They have repaid about 1,500 crores worth of bank loans after 6 years. Now I'll tell you the story on this inventories and receivables. Our average monthly turnover is about 2,500 crore. And our inventories and receivables are also 2,500 crores. From 6.5 months, we have come down to 1 month. And I see no reason why in the next year we will not come down to 25, 24 days also. So there is no limit.
So this whole process of defining the constraints and then exploiting the constraints, as you say, is this applicable across all industries? I'm sure there must be some areas where you think TOC is applicable in manufacturing, not here, or do you think it's across the board?
Across the board. I'll explain you. Ultimate constraint is always a wrong assumption. I'll explain. I'll take a very topical case today. People are saying, sir, I have a shortage of labor. Hence, I'm unable to deliver on time. I said, fine. I'll give you whatever labor you need. First, tell me how much sales you will be able to do extra. I helped them. They said 20%, 30%, whatever it is. I said, okay, what will be your contribution in that? You take the raw material variable cost out. Let's say it comes to a couple of crores. I said, okay. If I pay double the salaries of the people you need and they are not there, will you get in your region? I'm ready to pay double the salary. No, sir, our cost will go up. I said, I didn't ask about cost. I'm asking you a simple question. Will you get? We'll see whether should we employ them or not. Yes, we can get. Okay, I'm ready to pay double the salary. We find generally, if the benefit is 1 crore, the money which you have to pay to the labor is no more than 20 lakhs. Generally.
That's true. Yeah.
It is 5:1 the ratio. And mind you, I am paying double. Now, what is the wrong assumption? I must get every person, every resource, every material at the cheapest possible cost. It is wrong. The goal of the company is to make more and more money and not to save costs everywhere. This assumption is wrong. So, now let me take another area, very different area. Nobody is there. Health. Are we a system? Now, you are aware that I'm trying to cure my diabetes. I was diagnosed with diabetes in 95. 2011, my sugar levels went sky high. Doctor told me you have to take care, otherwise you will lose one of your limbs. I said, doctor, now I'm an extremist. I will cure it. He sarcastically said, you control it, that's good enough. Within 3 months, my sugar levels came under control with the same medications what I was taking earlier. By now, 90% of my medications are gone. And
so is it theory of constraints or something?
I'm coming to that. The first assumption which I had to remove from my mind, diabetes is not curable. That is the wrong assumption. Says who? Doctors. Just because they don't know how it can be cured, that does not mean it cannot be cured. I've yet not fully cured. It's not a question of whether it will happen or not happen. It's a question of when, which I'm going to do it. The very first thought, that's the starting point. I'll tell you a little bit the problems we have. My own cousin, she's a gynecologist. My wife told her that I have been able to eliminate or reduce my medications like anything. She said, no, diabetes can't be cured. I was not there. Then I rang her up. I said, tell me, when did you study medicine? It's more than 20, 25 years. And diabetes was not your subject in any case. Even if it was, for the last 25 years, you have done nothing about it. And you are telling it can't be done. I am telling you, I have already done it. So how can you refuse it? Now, just because you don't know, don't say it can't be done. So here is my message or gift to everyone, if I can say. Whenever you say it can't be done, it means two things. One, you don't know how to do it. Fair enough. But how the hell do you know in the whole world, nobody knows how it can be done? भाई पूरी दुनिया की अकल का ठेका तुमने कहां से ले लिया?
Very true.
पूरी, just because you don't know, that does not mean you are not aware. Okay, maybe nobody is aware, but on what basis can we say it cannot be done? So if there's any Bengali, I'll give a interesting this thing. Please stop using hobe na.
That is
Hobe.
So, Ravi, in preparation for this, I was making some notes, and I recall our earlier discussion. Although I know some of these points, but it'd be interesting to bring them into our discussion. One of the things that you normally say is that businesses create complexity for nothing. So, where does this notion come of, and how does one
I'll prove it in a minute.
Things?
I'll explain. Excuse me. Is there any person who is who is the owner sitting here other than you?
Yes, of course. Some of my friends are here on the call who are in business.
Okay.
Several of them.
Now, what is the biggest problem industry is facing these days? Number one problem, they are crying like anything. Okay, because they are not. Is it cash or not?
Yes.
Now, simplest measurement, the goal of the company is to make more and more money. And the simplest measurement is called free cash flow.
Yes.
Please ask, or anybody can respond. For the last financial year, 2019 to 2020, what was your free cash flow of the organization? That's a simple question I'm asking. How many owners know it? Just say yes or no.
Okay, I'm keeping a lookout on the comments. Yes, I see someone saying yes, of course.
Shashank is saying yes. Yeah. I saw that.
Yes.
Now, but Rishi Raj Tyagi is saying no. Now, typically is we decide, sir, our financial accounts are not ready, our profit and loss statement, balance sheet, etc. is not ready. Once both these are ready, then we generate cash flow. That's one way. But there's another way. You check how much money you had in the bank in the beginning of the year and on 31st March. The difference between two is free cash flow for all practical purposes. We make it unnecessarily complicated. By the way,
please layers of assumptions.
No, I'll tell you, we should ask this question: what is complex and what is simple? Somebody can tell me what is simple and what is complex. Anybody? Any response?
Please use the chat box to respond to this question that Ravi is posing. This is the first time that it's happened in my sessions that a panelist is posing a question to the audience. So that's wonderful. So Shashankji is saying simple is understand from top to bottom. Complex is only CFO can understand.
No, he is also making it a little complicated. Anything in life. Vijay Kumar has said complex is for what we don't understand. Absolutely correct answer. What we understand, it is simple. What we don't understand, it's complex. So whenever you use the word complex, please examine. When you don't understand anything, Ravindra has said something interconnected. Now, you are right and wrong. Complex has many entities. That does not make it complex. In fact, if you are a student of physics, when you have more the degrees of freedom, the more complex it is. If you had only 1 degree of freedom, it is the simplest one, because if you touch something, then you impact everything. For example, in an organization, let's spend a few seconds here. If you do something in one department, does it have ramifications in other departments? Some response, please. Yes, Ravindra has said. Now,
it's a system.
Assume,
so there is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, the question here is, let us say we had only one part, somewhere you touch that and it impacts everywhere. Is that system simple or complex? It can have 1,000 entities, but by touching one, you will impact everyone. Is that system simple or complex? Ravindra, I'm asking you.
It is complex.
Wrong.
Ravindra's answer.
It is absolutely wrong. Because if I know I have to touch one and everything will go away, it is simple. Because just touching that, I take care of everything. Now, that's another parameter. What is that single point? You may not know. I respect that. But the system, to a physicist, a simple concept, a simple is where the degrees of freedom are less. If you need to touch and attack 4 different places, it's a complex system. Now, let me say an organization. Do you think measurements has any impact on the behavior of the people? I'm asking everyone. No? You see, Ravindra, I mean, I need to, I don't know from what environment are you coming from. If you were to be paid on the basis of how many tonnage you are generating in a company, that's your, or you are getting the orders of tonnage. But some orders are loss making, some orders are profit making. What would you do? Do you care which is profit or loss? Or you pick up whichever is big, pick it up? Fabrication shop. If the people are going to be paid by the tonnage of the fabrication they have, will they ever worry whether I have completed an order or not? Ravindra, you and I can have a separate chat later on because you have some fundamental, I believe there's a possibility of your correcting your assumptions in a big way. Now,
Ravi,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm also looking at the time, and
Yes,
we have
yes.
about 18 minutes left, and I have a lot of questions, and we've yet to take audience questions. So
I'll just take 1 second. Remember, measurements drive behavior. If you have wrong measurements, you have no right to get right behaviors.
Absolutely. That is a dictum that I've learned from you, I think, almost 20 years back when we met. The right measurements will drive the right behavior. And wrong measurements don't start expecting the right behavior based on wrong measurements. Ravi, there's another practice that you have from your experience decided to work more with family-owned or family-managed businesses and not with the corporates, big and small. So where does this come from? And to the audience, I will request if you could post your questions in the Q&A box so that we can take up those also now.
Thank you very much for asking this very important question. Early in my consulting career, I had decided not to work with the government because they ask for bribe. Number 1. Second, there is no decision maker there. We know what happened in the first decade of this century. Even the Prime Minister was not the decision maker. So forget about the much lower people. I tried with a company called Goodyear. Exact, I'm sharing. This company was losing money for donkey's years. A friend of mine was on the board. He said, Ravi, you say that you can turn around any company without layoff. Why don't you help us? Goodyear was a big MNC tire company. I met its managing director. And what was my proposal? I'll turn you around in 3 months' time. I don't need any payment now. You pay me only after you have turned around. He took 1.5 months to respond. Says, no, the decision for consultants is taken at our head office, Akron, Ohio. Sorry. That day I decided I'm not going to work with MNC. First, there are no decision makers. They are still happy with their whatever it is. I've stopped it. On the other side, you might have noticed by now, all the participants, I'm not a very patient guy. I'm not a very pleasant guy. I'm not the one who's going to, let me please you. I'm take it or leave it guy. I found even the professional companies not very amenable. They have too many meetings and committees to decide, and they have a long ego or, to correct it. Whereas, I'm using a rough word, in an owner-driven organization, if I can show that there's a possibility of his making money, मैं एक शब्द बोलूंगा, it's a dirty word, थूक को भी चाट लेगा वो, if he sees money in that. Because the owner does not have a choice to switch organization. He has to work only on this organization. He has no other choice there. So what I find with the owners, somehow my equations will gel very well.
The other thing that I've also heard you say is that you look for organizations, and your ideal clients are the ones who have constraints, or more than constraint, they have crisis, especially cash crisis. Bhai, kal band ho jayenge, to then
Yes.
how to? Where does
You
this
see,
come from?
okay, you see, I'm not a very facilitative person. I know my strengths and weaknesses. Now I am not very patient. Now there are three types of organization. One who is losing money left, right, and center. Call it A. B, just about making some money. And C, making tons of money. Now, where do you expect the fastest response to anything new?
Losing a lot of money?
Yes, because he's bleeding. He's not saying, show me your degrees, and that he's bleeding. He has no other alternative. So I have two reasons why I love working with companies who are bleeding money. One, they have a sense of urgency. Yeah. They may not agree to start with, but at least they say, ठीक है यार, मरते मरते हैं, चलो इसकी बात मान लेते हैं. Second, I have a free day. No consultant goes to them. इनके पास तो पैसा ही नहीं है, कौन किसको देंगे? So I have मतलब field पूरा खाली छोड़ता हूँ.
So no competition there.
No competition, none.
Excellent. Ravi, I see a lot of questions here, and I'll read the first question from Ashok ji. Do you have any guidance on how to find a constraint? A very basic question.
Oh yes, in next 4 or 5 minutes I'll tell you. It's no big deal. Let's first say, I'll take 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute for each constraint. Nobody has a market constraint. Why? Because I believe unless you have 50% of the world market, you cannot say market is not there. Oh yes, you don't have orders. I accept that. So so market, nobody is a constraint. Let's see if you have an order. If order is your constraint, then it means you have more capacity. If you have more capacity and order is less, then you should be delivering nearly 99%, 98% on time. If you're not, then don't crib that orders are not there. Current orders you cannot fulfill for some reason, then at least order is not a problem. You can say I have a shortage of orders only and only if you're delivering nearly all your orders absolutely on time and in full. Professor Korwar, I came to know when he recommended me to Polaris software. Now, Arun Jain, the owner, he told me, I have a big problem. We are not able to deliver on time. I look at their MIS. I said, show me the measurement for on time. At least I could not find there. And now it is right on the top. And they saw a huge benefit. Only thing, they just put that measurement right on the top. Now coming back, let's say you are not delivering order on time. There can be 2 reasons, or maybe 3. One, you don't have capacity. Okay, you say I don't have capacity. Tell me, does any of your equipment or resources being utilized fully, nearly 90% on 24/7 basis? If not, you can't even say that my equipment or resource is bottleneck.
Which means there's an inherent assumption that you have to run 1 shift or 2 shifts and can't run a 3rd shift. So those assumptions need to be challenged.
Absolutely. Another possibility, no sir, we don't get people here. Again, nonsense. The fact of the matter is you want to get additional people at a very low price. you are not realizing what is the benefit of getting these people versus the cost. You're only looking at the cost angle and not the benefit. The problem here lies, I'm using this word very strongly, financial illiteracy. Financial illiteracy. I can tell you I've read only 2 books in my entire life on finance. One was a basic book by Anil Lamba, Romancing the Balance Sheet. The other book I'm going to share here right now. And I strongly recommend for everyone, I don't know whether you are able to see it correctly.
Yeah, Finance at Work.
Finance at Work. Okay. Incidentally, it's written by Professor Korwar. In my entire 48 years, I've never found as useful a finance book as this. My recommendation to everyone, please buy this book instantaneously. Just order today itself. It gives you great insights what to do. That is the job this book does. Now, coming back. So if many times, at least in 95% of the time, I have found the constraint is not a equipment. It's a policy. That's the
policy.
Yes. Trying to use each portion. For example, we need 4 helpers. You can get 4 engineers, but you can't get 4 helpers. This was my experience in Tata Motors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, assuming you have a problem that you are unable to deliver on time because you don't get supplies on time. Possible. I agree with that. Now, the moment you say supplies is an issue, often you have a problem because you are trying to buy either from L1, number one, and giving my true picture of politically incorrect. भाई मुझे रिश्वत मिलती है, ओनर को मिलती है उसमें, या मेरी सिस्टर कंपनी से आपको लेना है, या मुझे क्रेडिट ज्यादा देता है. It is your own policy because nobody could be buying more than 50% of the world consumption. So suppliers तो हैं. हाँ, आपकी policies हैं which prevents you.
True.
Now comes the last, 1 minute, I'll finish this. Last is suppliers are there, but I'm unable to pay them on time. And now they say, I cannot give you material unless you give me cash. So there are 4 of them. There are enough videos and presentations of mine available on the net. Please look in the net, you will get it. Or if somebody wants it, send me a mail, I'll send you across.
Maybe what we'll do is at the end of the video, I'll add a link to your videos also, some of the main site where you have your videos.
Sure. Any other question?
Yes. So there are lots of questions, and if need be, it's only 7 minutes left. But Ravi, if it's okay, we might extend by another 10 minutes or so, just so that we can go through all the answers. There are 2 questions which came to me by email earlier. One is COVID-19. You know, this is unprecedented. The world has not seen, or at least we in our lifetime, none of us on this call have seen this kind of a scenario. Any advice on business, because cash has gone down, market has gone down, we can't travel, you know, so how do we even go and meet customers and stuff? So all of that is closed. How do you survive and then thrive in this kind of times?
Okay. First is survive. Then to talk about thriving. The problem becomes we want to jump. Now look at this. Had COVID-19 not been there, we would not have been dialoguing like this. We know each other for more than 20 years. Do you?
Yes.
Why did we not have Zoom? Zoom was available 5 years back also.
Yes.
Why did we not do it? In fact, my own assumption was, no, the video conferencing is not so good unless you meet physically. But the reality is wrong. Today, I'm able to utilize my time far more than ever before. I mean, now it opens up the opportunity across. Actually, for me, I can use at least 12 hours a day. Earlier, for a 2-hour meeting, I had to spend 2 nights away from home because I will never take a morning flight. And now look at this. There's a huge opportunity. Let me explain in a simple manner, which will be easier. We pay money to someone when somebody solves our pain. Do you all agree?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll not, pay money. Right now, Vimal, you are paying some money to Zoom. You have taken some subscription.
Yes.
Now, because it is solving some of our pain. Now, one simple question I want all the participants: is the total amount of pains in the entire world, are they going up or going down? That's all. Up or down? That's all. That's the only question I'm asking.
You can use the chat box, everyone, to respond to this.
So,
My
Sudeep
personal
has said,
views, they are going up.
Sudeep has said going up. Shashank has said going up. Poonam Pandey has said going up. The fact of the matter is, Krishan has said going up. It means the opportunity to make money is also going up.
Yeah.
I don't care for the pain may shift, but they are not reducing. At least I can't see it. So the opportunity to make money is going up every single day. And once again, it's an assumption. What can we do? Ab to mar gaye, ab to kuch nahi hai. That puts you down. Opportunity to bahut hai. हाँ, मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी. Rajesh Khanna has said going down. Fantastic. This is the only person in my entire life who has said it is going down. Great. We'll learn from you how to reduce the pains. Perhaps you can have another session with him.
So Ravi, the next question that I see is from someone who's having a startup business, and they say, and he's perhaps summing it up for all startups, rich in ideas, poor in cash, or poor in management of cash. So any message, what's going on with the startup community, and what message would you give to them? How do
fundamental
some of your experiences?
Fundamental assumption. They want to win Olympic race without running a 100-meter race in the local, championship. They want to become unicorn, overnight. They are not B2B.
True.
So, I mean, let me count their companies. HP, it started in a garage. It didn't have any funding. I can give you any number of examples. They had to slog many years. Why do you want to take somebody else's money and do it on your own money? No matter how much small. Dhirubhai Ambani did not start by borrowing money, by the way. He became a certain level before he started borrowing money. So each one, and frankly, I am not talking about anyone. Microsoft is another one. I can tell you, I started in a small manner, very small manner. And now I have not borrowed money. Now I have 22 years. The other day I was calculating that how much money I have, which if I don't get any more, how many years can I further survive on? 5 years back, the figure came to till the age of 123, which means 56 years from that date. Not that I'm the richest person, but my expenses are very small. Of course, I made good money. I'm not at all denying on that. I make pretty good money without any, but good means I have more money than I can spend. Now, this is one. By the way, I've not stopped earning. And I do plan to work till the age of 120. My point is, why are we rush to become another Binny Bansals? Why? Are you working just to make money, or you're going to enjoy? What will happen if you become unicorn also? Look at many millionaires who had tons of money, but they committed suicide. For all of them, I would strongly recommend, please think hard. What is the goal of your life? Goal of your life.
Very interesting, I think. I want to come back to some of the questions from our audience. Shashank ji wants to know, in times of survival like now, how do you manage anxiety levels? How do you make sure
Whose
that
anxiety? Whose anxiety level?
I guess the team, employees, colleagues.
Okay. See, teams can work with very small. I'm going to give my own example. In 1992, I was at Parvanu, Aishar Parvanu.
Yeah.
That year, we made a loss. As a company policy, all employees, all the executives of the entire Aishar group were to get the same increment at the same level. But we had made a loss. But the increments will come the same. Increments had yet not come. So what happened, in any group meeting, we'll get snide remarks. ठीक है, profit बनाओ, loss बनाओ, increment तो सबको same मिलनी है. Our executives felt very bad. And we decided as a team, हम increment नहीं लेंगे. जब तक हम वापस profit में आके पिछले साल का loss cover नहीं करते. What do you think was the what you call motivation level of the employees when we declared this? Management को कह दिया हमको नहीं चाहिए. What do you think was the motivation?
I think it must have increased. Yeah.
Because the decision was taken by me. The point is, Shashank, what is the problem? I'm extremely angry with one company of which I got about 25,000 views on that, when profitable company lays off people. So what's your problem? Why did you not have enough money to see through another 6, 8, 9, 12, 1 year? What's the problem? The point again, the greed of the companies. No, sir, we don't have cash. We have invested. But why have you not kept any? What you क्या बोलते हैं यार वो rainy के साथ होता ना? Why have you not kept money for the rainy day?
Yes.
Look, anyone of the people who are saying, if you don't get 1 rupee more, can you survive for 6 months, 1 year or not? That's all I'm asking. Can you survive? I'm not saying you'll thrive. If yes, then why every company has not kept this money in cash? Warren Buffett has $135 billion in liquid cash. And somebody gave me the information today, Apple has $195 billion in cash. They keep enough so that tomorrow the market goes down, whatever happens, they don't have to borrow at steel.
Absolutely. Ravi, I am getting a lot of questions, but before I conclude, and I thought, just an extension of 10 minutes would be adequate. One last question from me to you, and this is not related to the work and the theory of constraints, but also very interestingly, you are only one of 2 people I have met in my lifetime who've actually calculated that you would live to the age of 120 years. And folks, those who are listening in, knowing that Ravi is still managing his diabetes and then having a vision to live a healthy, wholesome life till the age of 120 years. Ravi, how do you come to this 120 years and what is your formula or strategy for this?
Okay. Slight correction. Vimal, I do not intend to live up to 120. I plan to work till the age of 120. I want a few years thereafter for my so-called relaxation also. Now,
thanks for correcting me.
Yes, I plan to work till the age of 120. Now, you only had connected me with one gentleman in the US.
Yes,
and he
Mark
informed me.
Butler. He was the second one.
Yes. You see, there is a empirical evidence that mammals live up to 7 times the age at which they achieve maximum strength. Human beings achieve their maximum strength somewhere around the age of 20 or 21. By that logic, 140 and 147 should be the range. And as I'm reading more on Vedanta, and I got a book just today, I am just about to start reading this. Just today I got it. Vedanta treatise by Swami A. Parthasarthi. And whatever little Vedanta, I have read very little, but there are enough evidence that there were people who lived beyond the age of 150. And even in this world, about 2 years back, there was a news report in the Times of India of Bangalore edition last Saturday of May 2018. There's a farmer who is sowing or he's farming in Mexico, who is at the age of 123 still working in a farm there. This is in Times of India last Saturday of May 2018. I don't recall the date, but I am remembering this part. Now, my point is, I don't know whether it will happen or not, but I have decided I'm going to do it. Rest, and for that I have to take good care of my health. And yes, I do check up my health in a simple manner. Yesterday I was climbing I climbed 9 stories after I had done my walk. And it took me less than 3 minutes. So I can't be in that bad shape. And I don't intend anytime, calling it a day soon.
Wonderful, Ravi. This has been really a very lively session. It's interesting that we have actually overshot our planned time. So thanks to all those who are on this call. I want to conclude by sharing my own journey with you, actually, I should say. And it's almost about 20 years back that Ravi and I met. Actually, there was a retreat in Dharamsala at Chinmaya Mission, and then to meet with His Holiness Dalai Lama, on which we were going. We had taken a train to Pathankot, and then there was a bus journey we were going to take. There was a big group that was going, and I was sitting by the window, and Ravi came, and Ravi was sitting next to me. We started talking, introducing ourselves to and Ravi mentioned theory of constraints, and my immediate reaction was, ek to theory, mujhe to practical gyan chahiye. And second, he said constraints. I said, yeah, constraints. I want that liberation more than constraints. And I blurted out to Ravi at that time, Ravi, so what is this theory of constraints that you are talking about? And I remember Ravi's answer at that time. I was sitting by the window and Ravi was sitting on the aisle side. And Ravi said to me, chalo, now I have a captive audience for 2 hours, because that was a 2-hour journey. He says, ab 2 ghante mein, I will give you a full session on theory of constraints. Since that day, I think Ravi and I have been good friends, and we've done a lot of things together. Ravi, really appreciate your time for us. I'm sure there are a lot of friends who are on this call today. Do excuse me if I am not able to read everyone's comments live here, or some of the other comments that have come in, but I'm sure Ravi and I will be sharing these. Thank you so much for all the audience who have joined for this session. Ravi, special thanks to you. What I'll do is, at the end of the video session, I will add a slide which carries the links, the names of the books that Ravi is recommending, and also a link to some of his favorite videos, which I'm sure are available in the public domain then. Thank you very much, Ravi, and thank you everyone for joining us for this call. Have a lovely long weekend and enjoy Rakhi with the family.
Thank you. I hope so everyone got something or the other for their Rakhi. I hope so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.